For nearly 5 decades, Lou Ferrigno kept quiet about what really happened between him and Arnold Schwarzenegger. The world saw their rivalry in Pumping Iron, the legendary documentary that changed bodybuilding forever. But that film only told part of the story. Now at 73 years old, the man who became the Hulk is finally ready to reveal the truth about the psychological warfare, the manipulation, and the mind games that went far deeper than anyone ever knew. What Arnold did to Lou before that fateful 1975 Mr. Olympia competition wasn't just trash talk or friendly banter. It was calculated, deliberate, and it left scars that still haven't healed. The breakfast scene everyone remembers, that was just the beginning. Back in 1975, Lou Ferrigno was the most terrifying physical specimen bodybuilding had ever seen. Standing at 6'5" and weighing a massive 275 pounds, he towered over every competitor on stage, including Arnold's 6'2" frame. The size difference was staggering. Lou had the kind of mass that made other bodybuilders look small, the kind of presence that filled a room before he even opened his mouth. Magazines plastered headlines like "Bring me the head of Arnold Schwarzenegger" across their covers, hyping up the showdown everyone wanted to see. Fans were salivating at the thought of this giant from Brooklyn finally dethroning the Austrian king who dominated the sport for 5 straight years. But Lou carried something else into that competition, something most people didn't know about. Since childhood, severe ear infections had stolen 75 to 80% of his hearing. He'd been bullied relentlessly as a kid, called deaf and mute by classmates who couldn't understand him. His own father struggled to accept that Lou wasn't the perfect son he'd hoped for, rejecting him because of his disability. That pain drove Lou to the gym, to the comic books where he'd read about the Hulk and Superman, fantasizing about becoming strong enough that nobody could hurt him again. His hearing loss shaped everything about who he was, how he communicated, how he saw the world, and Arnold knew it. Arnold understood people's vulnerabilities better than anyone, and he was about to use that knowledge to devastating effect. What most fans don't realize is that Pumping Iron wasn't some fly-on-the-wall documentary capturing reality as it happened. Director George Butler had a vision, a narrative arc, and he needed Lou to play the role of Arnold's nemesis. Butler offered Lou 50 grand to be the underdog chasing the champion, and Lou took it. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Lou only trained for 9 weeks before the 1975 Olympia. 9 weeks. He'd been preparing for the ABC Superstars competition instead, a completely different kind of event that required a different kind of training. Arnold, meanwhile, had been paid to come out of retirement specifically for the film. This wasn't a fair fight. This was theater disguised as competition, and Lou walked right into it. The documentary crew manipulated everything to create drama. They filmed Lou in his dark, gritty basement gym in Brooklyn, making him look like the struggling underdog grinding away in the shadows. Meanwhile, they shot Arnold training under the California sun at Gold's Gym in Muscle Beach, surrounded by beautiful women, reporters, and other champions. The contrast was intentional, designed to make Arnold look like the established king and Lou like the hungry challenger. Even Lou's father, Matty, wasn't really his training partner before the film. Their relationship was complicated, filled with the kind of love-hate dynamic that comes from a parent who pushes too hard and a son who never feels good enough. But for the cameras, Matty became Lou's coach, his cornerstone, the father-son story that would tug at viewers' hearts. None of it was entirely real. Arnold's psychological warfare started long before competition day. He'd spent years as a trainer, learning how to read people, how to spot their insecurities, how to build them up or tear them down with just a few words. He realized that if he could motivate someone in the gym by addressing their weakness, he could also destroy their confidence as a competitor by exploiting that same weakness. And he did it with a smile. The breakfast scene became legendary for good reason. The day before the 1975 Olympia, Arnold sat down with Lou and his entire family, casually dropping bombs like he was discussing the weather. He told them Lou just needed 1 more month of training to be ready, implying that Lou was close but not quite there, that the timing was unfortunate but oh well. Then came the line that still echoes today. "You know, it's amazing. Can you imagine the feeling I have? 6-time Mr. Olympia. 6 effing times. It's incredible." Lou's family sat there, nodding, almost accepting that Arnold had already won before the competition even started. And Lou? He tried to brush it off, tried to stay focused, but the damage was done. Arnold later admitted it was all intentional. On a podcast with Tim Ferriss, he came clean decades later, explaining exactly how he'd manipulated Lou. He'd called his own mother before the competition and told her he'd already won, then mentioned this to Lou's family, making them wonder how Arnold could be so confident. It was a mind trip, designed to plant doubt, to make Lou second-guess everything, and it worked. In December 2024, Arnold discussed it again on the Two Bears One Cave podcast, admitting that Lou never trusted him again after that moment. Nearly 50 years later, the psychological scars remained. On stage at the 1975 Olympia, something happened that the cameras didn't fully capture. Arnold leaned over to Lou and whispered something in his ear right before the results were announced. Nobody knows exactly what he said, but whatever it was, it shook Lou. When the placements came out, Lou didn't even finish second. He placed third, behind Serge Nubret, who many believed had been Arnold's real competition all along. The documentary made it look like Lou was neck and neck with Arnold, like it could have gone either way. But the truth? It wasn't even close. Lou was never going to win that night, and Arnold made sure he knew it before they even stepped on stage. The whisper was just the final nail in the coffin, the last psychological blow to remind Lou who was in control. Years later, Lou finally started opening up about how much of the film was fabricated. He revealed that his father wasn't his longtime training partner, that their relationship was actually strained and complicated. He admitted that the dark, depressing atmosphere of his training environment was enhanced by cinematography choices, that the contrast between his world and Arnold's was exaggerated for effect. Lou even confessed that in 2019, explaining that he and his father had a love-hate relationship, that they only trained together for the documentary. The whole narrative of the supportive father coaching his son to greatness, it was mostly fiction. And Arnold's arrogance during filming wasn't just confidence or showmanship. Lou recently described Arnold as genuinely arrogant during that time, someone who truly believed he was untouchable. Because he was. Despite everything, Lou and Arnold never became friends. Not really. Arnold recently admitted that Lou has never trusted him since those mind games. Think about that. 50 years later, the wounds haven't healed. Lou carried his father's pain with him throughout his career, always feeling like he wasn't good enough, always trying to prove himself to a man who couldn't see past his son's disability. Arnold, meanwhile, also had a difficult relationship with his own demanding father, creating this bitter parallel between them. Both were driven by the need to prove themselves, to overcome their father's disappointments. But where Arnold channeled that into ruthless confidence, Lou channeled it into quiet determination. After pumping iron, their paths diverged. Lou never got another real shot at the Olympia title. He competed again in the 1990s, finishing 12th and 10th. But by then, the sport had moved on. Instead, he trained Michael Jackson, became the Incredible Hulk, and built a different kind of legacy. Here's the twist that must have burned Arnold. Lou got the role that was originally meant for the Austrian oak. When casting directors were looking for someone to play the Incredible Hulk in the late 1970s, Arnold was their first choice. He had the name recognition, the bodybuilding credentials, the charisma. But there was a problem. Lou was 2 inches taller and even more massive, making him the perfect physical embodiment of the Green Monster. The producers chose Lou, and Arnold had to watch as his rival landed the role that could have been his. From 1978 to 1982, Lou Ferrigno became a household name as the Hulk, appearing in living rooms across America every week. Kids didn't know who Arnold Schwarzenegger was yet, but they knew Lou. This was Lou's revenge, beating Arnold where it actually mattered to mainstream audiences. While Arnold was still trying to break into Hollywood, Lou was already a star. Today, at 73 years old, Lou Ferrigno still trains every single day. He hasn't let age slow him down, hasn't let the disappointments of his competitive career define him. But life has thrown him challenges that no amount of muscle can fix. In 2023, Lou revealed that his wife Carla, who'd been by his side since 1980, was suffering from advanced dementia and Alzheimer's disease. The woman who'd worked as his manager, his psychotherapist, his partner for over 4 decades, was slipping away. Court documents showed that Carla needed 24-hour care, that she had severe memory impairment and psychosis, that she was no longer the person Lou had known for decades. The Hulk himself, the man who'd intimidated everyone with his sheer physical presence, was powerless against this invisible enemy destroying his wife's mind. The situation got even messier when Carla filed for divorce shortly after, leading to ugly legal battles with accusations flying from both sides. Lou sued his own daughter Shanna, claiming she was trying to financially exploit Carla's condition. Carla accused Lou of having an affair, of using his size to intimidate her, of cutting her off from family and friends. The whole thing played out in the media, with restraining orders and bitter court filings revealing a family torn apart. By late 2023, both sides had agreed to mediation, trying to find some peaceful resolution to the chaos. But the damage was done. The man who'd survived Arnold's psychological warfare, who'd overcome childhood bullying and his father's rejection, was now facing the hardest fight of his life in his own home. Even with everything going on, Lou still talks about Arnold and their rivalry. In interviews throughout 2024, he's continued to discuss what happened in 1975, how the documentary was staged, how Arnold's mind games affected him. He doesn't carry hate anymore, he says. He's learned to stay positive, to focus on what matters, but he hasn't forgotten. When Arnold admitted on that December 2024 podcast that Lou never trusted him again, it confirmed what everyone suspected. The psychological scars from those pumping iron days cut deeper than anyone realized. Lou might not be bitter, but he's not pretending it didn't hurt either. He's finally telling his side of the story, finally breaking the silence about what really happened behind the scenes of bodybuilding's most famous rivalry. 50 years have passed since that breakfast table confrontation, since Arnold whispered in Lou's ear on stage, since the documentary that made them both legends. Lou admits now that it didn't really matter if he won or lost the 1975 Olympia. What mattered was what came after. Pumping iron brought bodybuilding into the mainstream, turned it from a fringe subculture into something millions of people cared about. Hundreds of gyms opened across America in the years following the film's release, and the fitness craze of the 1980s was born. Arnold went on to become the biggest action star in the world, then the governor of California. Lou became the Hulk, a childhood dream turned reality, and inspired countless kids who felt different or broken to believe they could be strong too. But here's what Lou wants people to understand now. Arnold's psychological tactics weren't just part of the game. They had real consequences. They damaged relationships, destroyed trust, left wounds that never fully healed. Arnold became a Hollywood megastar and political powerhouse, sure. Lou became an icon in his own right, absolutely. But the cost of that rivalry was higher than anyone knew. Lou spent decades carrying the weight of feeling like he wasn't good enough, like he'd failed to live up to the hype, like his father's disappointment in him was justified. Arnold's mind games didn't just beat Lou on stage that night. They got inside his head and stayed there for years. At 73, Lou finally has the wisdom to see the full picture. The rivalry made great television and launched two legendary careers, but it also exposed something darker about competitive sports, about the lengths people will go to win, about how psychological warfare can leave lasting damage even on the strongest people. Arnold admits now that he deliberately targeted Lou's insecurities, that he used his understanding of psychology as a weapon to turn his biggest physical threat into a mental wreck. The strategy worked perfectly. Lou never had a chance once Arnold got inside his head, but was it worth it? Looking at the decades of broken trust, the wounds that never healed, the relationship that could have been friendship but became permanent distance instead, Lou doesn't think so. Not anymore. Here's what Lou learned through all of it. The philosophy that's kept him training daily at 73, that's helped him survive his wife's devastating illness, that's allowed him to finally speak his truth without bitterness. You can't carry hate. You can't let resentment poison your life. You have to focus on what matters. Family, health, kindness, enjoying each day. The trophies fade. The magazine covers yellow and crumble. The psychological scars remain. But you get to choose whether they define you, or whether you define yourself despite them. Lou chose to move forward, to build a life beyond bodybuilding, to become more than just the giant who couldn't beat Arnold. He became the Hulk. He trained Michael Jackson for 20 years. He inspired millions of people who felt broken or different to believe they could be strong. Lou's final message, after nearly 50 years of silence, is this: winning and losing don't matter as much as you think they do when you're in the middle of the battle. What matters is how you treat people, what you build, who you inspire, what legacy you leave behind that goes deeper than trophies. Pumping Iron wasn't reality. It was a carefully crafted story with heroes and villains, with drama manufactured for cameras and directors who knew exactly what they were doing. Arnold's confidence wasn't just natural charisma or competitive spirit. It was calculated psychological warfare designed to break his opponents before they competed. And Lou was the perfect target. A gentle giant with deep insecurities about his hearing loss, desperate for his father's approval, hungry to prove he was more than the disabled kid who got bullied in Brooklyn. Arnold exploited all of it. The cameras captured every moment, and the world watched as psychological manipulation disguised itself as competitive strategy. Today, Lou still respects Arnold's accomplishments. He acknowledges that Arnold was the better bodybuilder, the smarter strategist, the more complete package on stage. But he also wants people to understand the full cost of that success. The psychological games weren't harmless fun or just part of the sport. They were deliberate attacks on someone's mental health, weapons used to destroy a competitor's confidence and will. Lou survived it. He built an incredible life anyway. He became the Hulk, trained music legends, raised a family, touched millions of lives. But he never forgot what it felt like to be the target of that kind of calculated cruelty. Now finally, he's making sure nobody else forgets either. The younger generation of athletes needs to know the truth about what happened behind the scenes of bodybuilding's most famous rivalry. They need to understand that psychological warfare has real consequences, that winning at any cost might cost more than you're willing to pay decades later. The silence is broken, the full story is out. And after nearly 5 decades, Lou Ferrigno has said his piece about the man who beat him with mind games as much as muscle, about the rivalry that made them both legends, but left scars that time couldn't heal, about what it really costs to be part of something that changes the world.